Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Kaylee. If you're new here, I use this channel to talk all about what intentional living looks like for me and also show pieces of my most intentional life that I feel like I'm creating for myself and my family. Today we are back with another budgeting video. This is an exciting one. There's a lot going on that we need to discuss. I had to go and look up an outline that I created for these types of videos because I have so much that I want to talk about that I wanted to make sure I tried to keep it as structured as possible based on some of the other videos that follow the same structure, where maybe I had less that I thought would take up time. Anyways, let's jump into the content of this video. First, we're going to talk about the month of July and just kind of do a little bit of an overview. I'm actually going to pull up my calendar just so I can remember what happened. We had a really busy month. The last week, so today is Friday, so like Monday through Thursday of this particular week, it wasn't that busy. We were actually pretty chill also over this weekend. However, everything before that was pretty intense. So we had my in-laws in town at the beginning of the month. Then Jonathan was gone for a week dog sitting. While he was gone, I had my sister here for a couple of days. And then the week after that, we went to Dahlonega on an overnight trip for my husband to take his certification exam. So it was busy. What did I feel? I felt a lot of anxiety. I am a highly anxious person myself. I've talked about this before. My husband is not a highly anxious person. He is very steady, go with the flow, mild-tempered. Like, it's why he's so good at his job. He is just so chill, except when it comes to school and the certification exam. He was highly stressed. So the closer we got to testing day, the more anxious he got. And I think it heightened my anxiety as well. So the more anxious I got. So anxiety was a big component. And then a spoiler alert for the Dahlonega vlog that's coming up in a couple of weeks. But he did pass his exam. So there was also immediate relief for both of us after that. And I was talking to a friend about this. There was also like a glimmer of hope that I didn't realize had left, that kind of felt like it came back with the passing of his exam, just for our future and the way that I feel like we're going to be in a better position to set ourselves up well for what we want in our future. And we're in a better place to do that on the other side of his exam because he got a pay increase, a significant one. So I'm not going to go too much into that. I'll probably do that in the next video because we won't really know what his new paycheck hitting the bank looks like until his next payday, which I think is August 15th. So we do have to wait on that. But what we do know is we will have more income than we have been having, and a lot of really awesome accomplishments are going to come along with that. So with that being said, there are a couple of financial decisions. One that you may go, was that really necessary? And the answer is no and yes. And then another one where I'm going to explain how we got to that point. And I don't think that you'll be very surprised based on my quarterly update video where we talked about finances. Okay, so let's look at the pie chart for the month of July and the percentages of all of our spending. I'm actually going to have two pie charts, similar to when we were paying for my husband's grad school, to look at our typical spending for the month and then add in a giant payment that we made to show the stark difference also in the amount that we paid versus our typical monthly expenses. I'm also realizing that savings isn't on here, and it never really is because It just feels like the savings that I do right now feels very small because it's $100 into my Roth IRA. We also have 4% of my husband's paychecks going to a 401k. So there is savings happening. It's just more behind the scenes right now than cash savings. So I just wanted to put a little disclaimer in there about that. So this spreadsheet is specifically spending, not including any savings that we've done, either cash, which we didn't this month, but cash or retirement. So miscellaneous 17.9, groceries 6.2%, eating out 8.2%, insurance 8.5%, rent and utilities 33.9%, subscriptions 0.3%, gas 3.7%, travel 11%, loan repayment 9.4%, and business expenses 0.9%. So that's our monthly overview of percentages. Bear with me and we'll get into the actual numbers here in a moment. But just in general, these are the percentages that we spent in the month of July in all of our different categories, except we had a meeting with our financial advisor on Tuesday of this week, so July 29th. And we talked about a lot of different things, but one of the things that I brought up was our predicament with the student loans and how they started accruing interest and the 6-month grace period was gone when we anticipated having 6 months of no interest to kind of aggressively pay down the loan. And instead it started accruing interest and literally jumped over $100 overnight. We had that meeting with him and I brought up our predicament and kind of laid out the different ideas that I had already thought of for paying those off. And he suggested paying off the 2 loans, because there are 4 loans that make up the total amount, paying off the 2 loans that had the highest percentage. It was over 4% in interest accruing, and the other 2 were 3.8 and below. So he suggested paying off the 2 highest interest loans immediately, and then building our cash savings back up a little bit based on having higher income. And then once we felt comfortable with where we got our cash savings back to, paying off the rest. And in the meantime, paying the minimum amount on the loan so that something was going to it and interest isn't just building on one solid amount. The amount is at least going down. So with that being said, here's the pie chart for the student loans included in our monthly spending. We made a payment of $6,563.65, literally the minute I got off of that call with our financial advisor. So that is what you see, the big blue section of the student loans. However, you'll also see a smaller, darker blue section that says loans 4.2%. because we did already pay $500 earlier that month to the loans. Technically, we made a payment of $7,063.65 total in the month of July for our student loans. Now, that amount alone outweighs our income by almost $2,000. So we definitely dipped into our savings in order to make that payment. But I know myself, and I know that I'm more motivated to see our cash savings number increase than I am to see the loan number decrease. I want the loan number to go away. I'm fine with paying it aggressively. And if we had another expense that came up that was unexpected, I would be more willing to not pay on the loan that month to kind of balance the unexpected car payment or whatever it might be, and therefore more interest would accrue on it. Whereas with my savings, it's going to look a lot different. So that's why we made that decision, and our financial advisor is pretty confident that we will actually be debt-free by the end of the year. So definitely keep a lookout for an upcoming budgeting video where we maybe make that happen. But that's where we are on the student loans and the percentages for the month. Let's go into all of the other categories and do a quick breakdown of what did we budget and what did we actually spend. So for groceries, we budgeted $450, but we only spent $331.07. That happened for a couple of reasons. One, we had a larger eating out budget this month, and we actually really made that stretch. Typically, if we have a lower amount budgeted, we go way over. So actually giving us a buffer with the eating out was a good thing. And we had more meals covered by people taking us out to eat to celebrate my husband, or just business covered meals, things like that, than we anticipated based on looking at the calendar at the time I made the budget. So our grocery budget was significantly less in spending than we budgeted. Then we have eating out. We budgeted $400. We spent $439.12. So we did overspend that category by $39.12. A couple of things. I'm not upset by that. Two, I am upset about a meal that we had that was $58.21, nearly $60, because I fell into the trap of the Chili's Triple Dipper. If you're in the States, even if you're international and you have Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, you have seen people, for some reason, in their cars eating the Chili's Triple Dipper with the mozzarella sticks, the chicken tenders, the sliders, the egg rolls, whatever else, okay? So we went to Chili's to try these freaking Triple Dippers. Can I tell you, that was the most disgusting meal I have had in a very long time. It was actually gross. Like, I think I took a bite of each of the things that I got in the Triple Dipper. I don't think I finished, I didn't finish one whole mozzarella stick. I didn't finish one whole egg roll. And I forget the third thing that I got. It was so gross. The only thing that was good was the chips and salsa that we got, which is crazy that you have to pay for that. And it was just so bad. So I had to come and say, it's not worth the hype. It's so gross and so heavy. So heavy. And I didn't even eat a full thing of any of it. And I felt incredibly bloated and in pain after. And we took the leftovers home because we felt like it was a waste of food otherwise. And Jonathan would eat it. He said he was willing to eat it for lunch at work. And then we got home and we were like, you know what? We're just going to have to throw this away because it's not worth feeling like this to eat that food. And we will never go to Chili's again. I hadn't been to Chili's in probably 13 years, if not more, and I never have a desire to go back. So it was a really big regret, honestly, of our budget and of dining experience. Ugh, so upsetting. Rent and utilities, we budgeted $1,803.03. That's what we spent. Subscriptions, we budgeted $17 or $16.99. That's what we spent, which is just Spotify. Gas, we budgeted $2.25, and I'm glad we did up it. We didn't necessarily hit $2.25, but we did spend $195.82. And one thing that I want to mention, my brother's fiance uses an app called Upside, and you can get cash back on gas purchases. I think you can also get it at some restaurants and some stores. I'm only now using it for gas because you can get between 10 and 21 cents back per gallon, which is a pretty sweet deal. So we started doing that at the end of June, And then we got gas 5 times in July. And already in the app, I have like $12 sitting there that I can either put on a gift card, which we would wait till like the end of the year to do that, or you can connect it to your bank and send it directly to your bank. So that's pretty cool. I will leave a link down below. This isn't sponsored, but with my code, because it gives you a boost of 10 cents per gallon, I think, for the first time that you use it, which is totally worth it. So upside is down in the description. But with gas, we spent $195.82. Travel, we budgeted $500. We ended up spending $584.93. I forget. There was something that was slightly more expensive than I anticipated it being, but I don't remember what that is now. But that covered $200 to finish the payment that we owed for our vacation in June, a gift card for the person who watched Wrecker while we were on the vacation in June, and then all of our expenses in Dahlonega. Loans we already discussed, and then insurance, $381.33 is what we budgeted. We spent $452.33 because after Jonathan passed his exam, he had to get liability insurance for his new role, and that was $71. That one, we forgot that we needed to budget for that, and two, even if I knew, I wouldn't have known how much, so I probably would have under or overshot it. So this is fine. It was an additional $71, but that's for the year. Business expenses, I budgeted $28.98, but spent $48.29. And that is because I forgot about a meal that I was having with someone that I had been networking with, and we planned to go out, and I just completely forgot to budget in for that. So that was an additional $19.31, which is actually way cheaper than it could have been. So that's nice. And then for miscellaneous and personal, here's where the purchase that you're probably going to scratch your head at. Bear with me. We budgeted $450. We spent $953.58, but $503.49 of that was for a Nintendo Switch 2. And I want to talk about this for just a second, because my husband graduated with his master's in May, which was a degree that he never intended to get when we were first dating, and even when we just knew each other as friends. It was something that in this career move felt like the right next step, because this was something that he was so excited about and so built for, that it would have been a shame if he had never moved up the ladder, as it were. So he graduated in May, and then he has been studying for this exam since March and had to take this exam in the month of July. He passed the exam on his first try. It was a huge feat for him to graduate and then also stay steady with his studying to pass that exam. And if it had been me, I would have wanted to go to an all-inclusive in Mexico to celebrate that. Okay? And I would have done it. We would have done it. And he wouldn't have batted an eye at the cost, because I was celebrating a huge accomplishment that I had worked really hard for. He does not feel the desire to treat himself quite the same way that I do when it comes to rewarding yourself with something big like that after the process of a degree and the process of this exam. And while I would have absolutely said yes to an all-inclusive trip to Mexico, what he really wanted was a Nintendo Switch 2. And we had been looking at Nintendo Switches, or been trying to find one, because they were really hard to find. Then we found one when we were in Michigan in June, and literally all he had to do was tap his card and we were in possession of it, and he didn't do it. So then I was like, okay, if I can find one after he takes his exam, we will get it. And that will kind of be his treat and reward for all of this hard work that he has done. Literally a couple days before is when Best Buy and Target, potentially Walmart, I don't know, I didn't check, but they got more stock of the Nintendo Switch 2s. So I kept looking at them and refreshing and refreshing and refreshing. And then he took his exam. He passed his exam. And I asked him, do you want to buy a Switch? And he was like, oh, we really shouldn't. We don't know what's going on with these loans. Like, let's wait and figure that out and whatever. And I was like, okay. And then we got home, and a couple days after that, I was thinking about it, and I was talking to someone, and they were like, oh, how is he going to celebrate? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to buy the Switch. So I went on Target. They were still in stock. I ordered it online. It came in a couple days later, and now we have a Nintendo Switch 2. So that is a red light purchase in this category, and we're just going to start with red light purchases. But that one I felt deserved a story. So other red light expenses were $48.75 for actually this bookcase back here that you see, and a cheesecloth to use in the kitchen for when I make vegetable broth, because that's what I need to like strain all of the different things out when I'm making the vegetable broth. So I got the bookshelf and the cheesecloth at the same place, $48.75. $31.80 at a place, a local business called Bomb Babes. I know her personally. She makes cake bombs. So think cake pop, but bigger and better and way more delicious. And she has now a little pop-up storefront really close by, and we were there for another event, and we walked over, and I was like, oh, I really want some bombs, and I want to support her business. So we got more than we typically would have, and that's technically a red light purchase, so that was $31.80. And then $15 for 2 or 3 discs for disc golf for my husband. There is a local place that's like a neighborhood HOA, but they have a disc golf course. You can pay to play there for a year. And every so often they have a sale of discs that people have either just like given and left behind, or that have been lost on the course. And if someone's contact information isn't on the back of the disc, they hold it for a while, and then they have a sale every so often for really great prices for the discs. So he went and spent $15 there, and then $6.24 for another shirt for Jonathan from Goodwill. He is now fully stocked up on his button-down shirts at Goodwill. We will not be doing any more of those. Before I go into yellow light, just a reminder what these different lights mean. Green light are purchases that we budgeted for and expected. Yellow light is purchases we didn't budget for but were necessary or were allowed. Red light purchases are those that we didn't budget for and were unnecessary. So yellow light purchases, $35.99 to Haley Hamilton, which is the author of the Elf Lane Chronicles Ballad of Dawn, which I have talked about before in some of my book videos. Her next book is coming out towards the end of the year, I think September or October, and I went ahead and pre-ordered the special edition so that it matches with the special edition paperback that I have of the first one. And she has actually switched to selling all of her own books because of some of the changes that were happening with Amazon and some other booksellers. It was costing her money to sell books. And so this way she makes money off of the hard work that she's put into these things. And I think that that's really important to support local authors, indie authors, small authors in making their book dreams happen, because I would want someone to do it for me. Then there was $5.13 at Revive Consignment. I got two sets of chopsticks, which I'm very excited about, because literally a week before we found those, brand new in the packaging at the consignment store, I had sushi from somewhere and they didn't send chopsticks, and I could not fathom eating sushi with a fork. It was just wrong. So now I have some nice bamboo chopsticks that I can use for the rest of time. Then we had 2 other Goodwill purchases, $2.04 and $7.51, both for books. And then $11 at our library because there is a Friends of the Library sale every month on, I think, the second or third Friday and Saturday. And I went to go there and I got 11 items. I got 10 books and one puzzle for $11. So I'm very excited about that. And that was the end of our yellow light purchases. And we have to talk about books, but I'll wait to do that in talking about August. Then our green light purchases, $61.06 at Tower 28 because I needed to re-up some skincare. Same thing for Experiment, $29, also skincare. Then $35, we just knew we were going to the Braves game, so I made a little bit of a buffer in our miscellaneous for any purchases that we might make there. And we did a pedal cab back to the parking lot, which was $35. And then a $14.29, which was for Dippin' Dots at Truist, the stadium. And then $68.32 at Target for various different items that we needed to re-up on: toothpaste, Advil, tissues, toilet paper. $78.96 for heartworm medicine for Brecker, which actually still hasn't gotten here. Totally another problem, but they just shipped a replacement, so hopefully it'll get here soon. So typically I would also say like what we overspent and all of that, and I'll kind of do that, but just know that with that like $6,500 payment on the student loans, this is not quite right, and I don't want to put that in here for our overspending for the year, because it is and it's not, because we were going to pay it off anyways. Our total budget amount was $4,755.33. We ended up spending $5,325.16, which was an overspend of our budgeted amount by $569.83. However, if we took the switch off of that, it would have only been over by $66, which I think is pretty good. And then that amount, based on our total income for the month, we were still in the negative of $275.53. But again, without the switch, we would have been positive. So that feels pretty good, which brings our total overspending to around $2,100 for the year, minus that 68-ish that we spent on the student loans. So that feels pretty good to be now fully 7 months into the year and having only overspent by $2,100 when it comes to our normal monthly expenses and the last payment on my husband's graduate degree. That wraps up looking back at July. Some intentions for August are to stay within the budget that we're about to create together, find our new kind of normal when it comes to income to expenses, and kind of come up with a solid plan for, one, getting our cash savings back up, and two, figuring out when we think we can pay off the rest of the student loans, and making sure that we are very aware of our spending continually, even though our income is going to increase. I do not want lifestyle creep to sneak up on us and have us spending more than we need to be spending, even though our income has increased. We have a lot of goals still with our savings and with debt payoff that I want that to remain the priority, even if we expand our budget slightly for some things. But I would really like us to stay in this kind of low buy mindset through the end of the year to see what we can accomplish with our finances. So similar, I think, to last month, we are just going to go straight in now to budgeting for August because I've waited until today, Friday, August 1st, to film this. A couple of things of note for this month. One, Jonathan has 3 paydays, which is fantastic. He got paid today. He'll get paid August 15th and August 29th, which feels exciting, again, just because of thinking of the financial goals that we have for the rest of the year. To have a month or two left in the year that he's going to have 3 paydays in the month is very helpful. Another thing to note is we have officially been in this apartment for 1 year. And because of that, our rent is increasing, but only by about like $21 or $2. I did just want to mention that because our rent and utilities amount is going to be slightly higher for that reason. However, it will go down either in September or October once our phones are paid off, and then that'll free up some money in that category and help completely kind of take care of the small increase that it was to renew our lease here. And then books. Listen, I did the math on how much we've spent on books, and I think it's like $350 something, which isn't that much. It's less than I thought it was going to be, but also more than I technically wanted it to be for this year. So we have officially, and kind of unofficially, because I have one exception and I'll talk about it in a minute, decided to go on a book buying ban until we read at least, this is so embarrassing. Until we both read at least half of our physical TBR of books we have never read before but own. This is why it's embarrassing. Jonathan has to read 18 physical books because in our home library, there are 36 books that he has not yet read that he desires to read. So he has to read at least 18 of our physical TBR books in order for him to be able to buy any new books. And I have to read 28 because there are like 56 books that I own but have not yet read that I desire to read. So he has to read 18 books. I have to read 28 in order for us to get off of this book buying ban. I think that it's very possible that we could do that. Well, probably me for sure. I don't know about Jonathan, but I could probably do that by the end of the year. Jonathan, maybe not. There is one exception to this, and that kind of is going to lead us into looking at the calendar because there's a bookstore called Second and Charles. They have them a lot of places. We only have one that I know of here, like in our area of Georgia. And they have an event coming up on the 16th for members where you pay a penny per page for up to 5 books. So say a book is 350 pages, you pay $3.50 for that book. They have a couple caveats. It can only be their used book selection, not any new books. But that's a really good deal. And I'm hoping there are not 10 books that we walk away with because you do it per member. So he could get 5 and I could get 5. So that could happen. But that's the only exception. That's the only exception to our book buying ban is August 16th, penny per page day. And our goal would be to only get books that we really want to have, not just to get 5 books each at a penny per page. So we'll see. But other than that, we are on a book buying ban officially because we need to read some of our physical books. I also skipped over how I hope to feel this month. I think, again, hopeful is definitely something that I'm going into this month with, and relaxed and laid back about our finances because it's been a long time since I could really say I am wildly hopeful and optimistic about our finances, and I want to sit in that this month. So I want to set up our budget well, but I also want to sit in that this month. We don't have a lot going on when it comes to the calendar, so we're trying to find some things that, are fun to do that are also potentially free. But let's look at our calendar. What I want to look at first are how many meals we'll be eating out in or that are like covered by someone. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 meals covered for dinner, which leaves us with 22. So if we said 11 meals out and we budgeted $30 per meal, that would be $330. And I'm going to put a buffer of that. And I'm going to put kind of a significant buffer because us not having a lot going on means we're going to get blindsided by some stuff. And I just want to make sure that we've got a buffer. So I'm going to do $450 for eating out. And then if we've got 11 meals at home for dinners, and then we also have breakfast and lunches, you know what? I'm also going to do $450 for groceries. My hope is we'll come under budget for both of those things. But I do think that's the move, probably, for this month. For gas, I want to up it again. I'm going to put it to $2.25 again this month because we do have some caretaking that we're doing. And also it's possible that we'll be going to a lake house with some friends to their parents' lake house at the end of the month for Labor Day. And that's in Alabama. So we would need more gas for that, but I don't necessarily want to book it for travel because there will be like no other expenses under that. $2.25 for gas. Rent and utilities, I already know what we're going to owe for the month, so I'm budgeting $1,838.25. That's all that we need to put there. Subscriptions, budgeting $16.99 for Spotify. Travel, I'm budgeting $430.37 because literally this morning I paid $430.37 for our rental car for our travel in November. We're going to Minnesota. My brother's getting married, and I just wanted to go ahead and have everything paid for so that when it comes to going in November, we only have our expenses there and not anything extra. So the flights, the hotel, and the rental car are now all paid for. So we went ahead and paid for that this month. For loan repayment, like I mentioned earlier, the plan is to pay the minimum payment, which is $175, which, by the way, is crazy because there is now like $7,600 that we owe on the loan. And just for $7,600, if all we did was pay the minimum payment of $175, which actually is even more than the minimum payment. I think it's like $71.20, but I wanted it to be like a whole number. At $175 on $7,600, it would still take almost 4 years to pay off that amount, which is ridiculous. But anyways, that's what we're paying until we pay off the rest of it when we feel comfortable to do so, which will hopefully be before the end of the year. I'll keep you posted. For insurance, we budgeted $381.33 because that's what I know we will be spending. It's just one of those categories that I know. Business expenses is a little higher because I gifted my brother and his fiance a couples Enneagram assessment. So business expenses for this month are $130.98. I'm hoping to not go over that amount. Now we come to miscellaneous and personal, and we have quite a long list of things that we need to purchase this month. I think I have a written list somewhere of a couple of other things that we might need. So I am going to buffer this a little bit more than I typically do, perhaps. So one, we need dog food. I'm going to budget like $42 for that, even though it should be free because we get his food from Hollywood Feed and they have a program where if you buy 12 bags of food, you get one free. And we haven't used our free bag because I keep forgetting that we have it. So this time I'm planning to use it, but I still want to budget the amount just in case anything goes wrong, and that help builds our buffer. What? That help builds our buffer? That helps build our buffer. We also need coffee. Jonathan needs his 2.5 pound canister refilled, and I haven't had my decaf in a really long time. So when I go get that filled up, I'm going to buy a bag. I put the rental car on here, but that was under travel. We've already budgeted that. Oh, for coffee, how much am I budgeting? I think it's like $45, because I think his is like 32 something maybe. And then mine's like 16. It might be more than that, but we're going to say 45. And then I have one makeup product that's like a holy grail makeup product for me, and it is on its last leg, and I might need to repurchase that this month. So I'm going to go ahead and budget for it. I'm going to budget $45. I don't think it's that much, but again, this helps to build a buffer. We need dish detergent, which is like $7. Brecker is getting a nail trim tomorrow. I think that's $22. We need toothbrushes, which is literally $1. And then a new game came out and I really want to get it on the Switch. I myself haven't gotten a new game in a really long time. So even though we just bought the Switch system and it came with a new game, there is a game called Tales of the Shire where you get to be a hobbit in the Shire. And I just am so excited to play that. And it's on sale right now until August 11th. So I'm going to buy it this month because of that. So I'm going to budget $32, even though I think it's a little lower than that. And that puts us at $195, which again feels optimistically low for what this category typically is. I'm going to do a buffer. I'm going to say $350. And if we come under budget, that's glorious. Now, what I really like to see with this is that brings our budget total to $4,447.92, which our income should far outweigh that amount. So if we go over budget, 1, we should still have a buffer. 2, we should immediately get some of our savings back literally this month. And that feels really good to know that that's possible. So I think that's it. I feel like I talked a really long time for July, but there was a lot to update you on. We didn't do a whole lot. I mean, we did. We were quite busy, but also just so many things in our financial world have changed and updated. And I'm really excited for the trajectory that we are on. There was a time, literally 2 months ago, where the goal of being debt-free by the end of this year felt really far away, and now it feels very possible. And when we get to that point, I will probably do a video just kind of talking about that process. Honestly, from the moment that we got married, which was in February of 2020, to now, or to the time, once we pay it off, because that's kind of when the journey of paying any debt that we came into the marriage with, because as I've said before, we fully combined our finances, to now being 5 years married and debt-free, hopefully by the end of the year, just feels really incredible. And yeah, I'll probably do a whole video on that, because if I start talking about it now, I'm going to talk for another 20 minutes. So that is all. We have looked at July. We have budgeted for August. I'm really, really hopeful for this upcoming month, for the rest of the year. And honestly, here's the thing that I'm going to be so super honest about. If there is any chance we could still save money and go to the beach for Labor Day instead of the lake, it's possible that we'll do it. It's possible that when I come back here in a month, travel spending is way more than $430, which we've just budgeted for. I'm going to try so hard to not, because we shouldn't. And I cannot tell you what going to the beach did for my soul in June. Oh God, I shouldn't have even said that out loud, because now it feels possible. We're not going to do it, but we might. But we're not. We're not going to do it. We're not. I'll see you in a month, and then we'll know for sure. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this helped maybe realign yourself to your budget and to your finance goals. I will see you next week where I am uploading my packing and a personal item for a 3-day trip video. Until next time.